Because we don't pay attention.
Because you didn't pay attention. It's kind of like inattentional blindness. Yeah. It is inattentional blindness.
I started studying pennies.
Wydra.
We're looking at everyday things and being.
I mean, I always been
Put the time into the class. All right. Encoding. What is encoding?
when you get information,
Getting
into
information
memory.
in. What is keeping it there?
A story.
Storage. What is taking it out? Retrieval. Good. Again, in order to encode, we must pay attention. What proves that we have an early what proves that we have a late filter? Cocktail party phenomenon. What's the mnemonic?
Cocktail parties happen late at night.
Cocktail parties happen late at night. Good. When do we have an early filter? When do we have an early filter?
Low cognitive load.
Low cognitive load. When there's not a lot of noise. You hear every little thing, right? When do we have a late filter?
High cognitive load.
When there's a lot of noise. When there's a high. So think of a cocktail party, right? There's a lot of noise, but you hear your name because your brain had to process it. It went deep in the brain and you processed it. Late filter. Okay. Levels of processing. Which was the best?
Semantic.
Semantic. What is semantic? Meaning, right? Good. What's the worst? Structural. What is structural?
Like the font.
The way it's on. The look of it. Yeah, the font, how many letters, the color, stuff like that. What is phonemic?
The sound.
Sound. Remember phonemes, right? So the sound. And that's like the middle one. So the deeper the level of processing, what? The more likely you're going to remember. What do we call that theory?
Levels of processing theory.
Levels of processing theory. Good. Elaboration. We're linking it to other stimuli, right? Like we form association. So these are all ways of improving your encoding, enriching your encoding. What is visual imagery?
You
create a picture.
You create a picture in your head. You must do what kind of encoding for that?
Semantic.
Because otherwise, how can you picture it if you don't know what it means, right?
Yeah.
And then by visual imagery, you're using two methods of encoding, the picture and the word. So that's called dual coding, okay? Self-referent, you make it personally meaningful, relevant to yourself. And then you must have motivation but during encoding, right? It's great if, during the test you have all this motivation, but if you weren't paying attention when it was covered, that's not going to help you much, right? Okay, cool. We did this.
Yes.
All right, what's the shortest type of memory?
Sensory.
Sensory, very good. Not short term, sensory, good. How long does it last?
Fraction of a
Fraction of a second. What was iconic memory? Visual memory, good. What was echoic? Auditory memory, like an echo. Which one lasts longer? Think of an echo, it lasts a long time. So echoic lasts longer than iconic. Okay, you remember the sound of something longer than you remember the look of something. Is that interesting? Okay. Like 2 hours later, right? You can think of my voice, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and you can remember how I look, but it's not going to be as clear, as accurate as the sound of my voice, if you think about it, right? Yeah.
I feel like in movies, when you recognize like the voice actor, if they play a cartoon character.
Yeah. Okay. Short-term memory. Oh, well, sensory. So remember, that's like the glow stick, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Short-term memory. How long does it last? 10 to 20 seconds. How many pieces of information?
7.
5 plus or minus 1 is the new research. The old is 7 plus or minus 2. Around 5, and you should be okay. And how do you keep it in short term?
You put rehearsal.
Rehearsal or repetition? No, you're right. Rehearsal is like the official term.
No.
Okay, and then how do you increase the capacity?
You put it into short-term memory.
Chunking. Group of
chunky monkeys.
Family of chunky monkeys. Short chunky monkeys. You group familiar stimuli. Remember? FBI, CIA, remember that one? Or the years? 1776, 1812. Right? So if you group familiar stimuli, then each group counts as one spot. And so instead of remembering like 5 numbers, you know, you could remember like 20 numbers because if they're in groups of 4. Is that clear?
Yes.
So again, a chunk is a group of familiar stimuli. So when it's grouped, it's familiar. What do you call grouping like stimuli? Clustering. Good. Remember not to confuse the two. Clustering is long term. Okay? We'll get to that in a minute. All right, working memory. So that's like short-term memory, working memory, or using it at the time. What do you call the repetition keeping it in there? Phonological loop. What do you call the ability to manipulate objects in your head? Visual spatial sketchpad. That's like Tetris works with that too. That's how you can play Tetris, right? All right, what about what shifts your attention from one thing to the other? Central executive system. And then what's the space in between short-term and long-term? Episodic buffer. Okay, the space between. Good. Working memory capacity. What happens when you have a high cognitive load? Your capacity goes down. When you have a low cognitive load, your capacity can increase or, you know, be as high as it can be. Okay. So again, chunking, you're able to remember that. Without chunking, maybe you would get up to, you know, the C or something, or the second C.
That's why I got the phone number that I got.
Oh, because it's, because it was all similar, right?
7444447.
Right. There you go. Okay. Okay. All right, long-term memory. How long can you keep it for? Possibly, unlimited amount of time,
If you
days,
keep
weeks,
rehearsing.
months, years. Well, rehearsing keeps it in short-term, right? But if you like semantically encode somehow, you can put it into long-term.
But isn't like long term like not really that like infinite because that you forget stuff even if it's in long term?
We do, but let's say it's like a fact, right? Or like we forget like episodic stuff.
Yeah.
But if it's like a fact or a number, like you could keep it for years.
But isn't it still considered like long term memory like still kind of flawed because we can't keep episodic memory
It could
encoded?
be flawed, but there are things that we could still remember.
Yeah.
Okay, flashbulb memories are kind of the flawed ones. So so again, long-term memory, you could keep it for many years. Unlimited in capacity, we think. You can't really prove it. Flashbulb memory, that's about like a newsworthy event. And we think what? We think we remember very clearly, but what does research show?
That they're not very accurate.
It's actually not as clear as we think. So remember they did a study after 9/11, and right after they asked people about, what they did that day and everything, and then they asked the same people, 10 or 20 years. No, it wouldn't be 20. I was like, let me do the math. Maybe 5 years later, 10 years later, and 2001, yes, we're not there yet. So, their memories, they thought they really knew it, but they were actually wrong. Okay? All right. It's crazy to think it is almost 20 years ago. Getting old. Okay, long-term memory. So how we organize long-term. So clustering, remember when we did that demo and I had the list of foods, right? And one side of the room just saw all the foods in a list. And the other side of the room, this side saw all the foods in the list. This side saw it all grouped, clustered. So the fruits were in one list, the vegetables were in one list, and the meats were in one list. Who remembered it better? The second group, right? Because of clustering, because that's how our brain likes to organize information. So when we group stimuli that are similar, like banana, apple, pear, those are all similar, right? Because they're all fruits, we remember it better. Okay, so remember I said, think of it like clusters of like the chocolate clusters, like C's candy.
Oh, yeah.
Like all the peanuts are together, all the almonds are together, all the pecans or walnuts, whatever they do, those are together. Okay? Schema, what's a schema? Preconceived idea, organized cluster of information or knowledge, right? We remember things that fit with our schema, and we forget things that don't, unless it's like totally out of the ordinary. So remember the doctor's office example, where they remember things that actually weren't there, that typically are at a doctor's office, like tongue depressors, and cotton balls. Maybe they remember it being there, even though it wasn't there. Remember we talked about that? Okay. Did I talk about it in all
Yeah,
the
they had
classes?
stuff out of place. That's why.
Yeah.
And the things they didn't remember, like they had like a world map. But
Right,
They never mentioned
and they
that.
didn't remember those things, yeah. Okay, and then conceptual, oh, and that's why, remember the woman in the scene in the park, the free response I gave you guys? Where the first picture was a woman yelling at a man, and they recall it as a man yelling at a woman because that fit with their schema, because usually men are the aggressors, and so they remember the man being the aggressor because our schemas can affect our memory. Our schemas can affect our memory. Remember that one, guys?
Yeah.
Okay.
I got it right.
Conceptual hierarchy. That was like almost like an outline. Okay, so a multi-level classification system. So you have like nervous system, right? And then you have central and peripheral. And then in peripheral you have somatic and autonomic. And then autonomic you have
Sympathetic.
parasympathetic and sympathetic. That is a conceptual hierarchy. It all goes levels. Is that clear?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you outline your notes, that's actually very helpful to remember information. Okay. So even, when you get to college, like, they're going to assign reading, and no one's going to check it. No one's going to ask for reading notes, right? So what you want to do is maybe just as you read, outline. It doesn't have to be full-on reading notes, right? By college, you could just read and outline, right? Like put the heading and then this information, and under this information comes this. You could even do like a tree chart type thing on your notes. That'll help you guys, okay? All right, semantic network. So this is where one thing makes you think of another thing, and then that thing makes you think of another thing. What do you call what's in the circles? The nodes. The nodes. What do you call the lines connecting?
The links.
The links. Links and nodes. Clear?
Yes.
Okay. So that's how when you're with your friends and you start talking, and then like 10 minutes later you're on a whole nother topic and you're like, how do we get here? And then you trace it back, right? Or we're in class and we get off topic. So that's because of semantic networks. One thing makes you think of something else, and so on. It's kind of fun. All right. Retrieval. So we did encoding, we did storage, and now we're on retrieval. So getting information out of memory. What proves retrieval failure? Tip of the tongue phenomenon. Like, I know it, it's on the tip of my tongue. That means it's in storage, you just can't get it out, right? Another thing that proves it is if you need a little hint, a retrieval cue, right? You might not know the answer, but if I give you a hint and then you get it, it shows it was in storage, you just had trouble retrieving it. Retrieval cue. Context cues. That's where I told you guys when you take the test, you'll probably be in here. That's why I do the reviews in here. One of the reasons. Also, you guys won't fit in my room. But when you take the test, what should you do?
Look up.
So you guys will already be here. So imagine yourself either back in my classroom or here while we're, you're already in here, so you don't have to imagine. But during review session, imagine yourself sitting in the review session, something like that.
Like you mentioned the PowerPoint, so like you flip through the slides.
Right, yeah, and that'll help you. It kind of relates to like renewal effect, right? Where like you remember, like the response comes back, spontaneous recovery happens because it's in the same place. Something about being in the same place. Same way, like if you get into a car accident in a particular place and then you become scared of driving and then the fear goes away, but then you go back to that place, you could be tensed up again. It's the same kind of thing, okay? Reconstructing memories, are they accurate?
No.
Usually not.
Misinformation.
Oh yeah, misinformation effect, that's important. So what's the misinformation effect?
It's when somebody
when
tells
people
you
give
about
you
what
info.
happened.
Someone gives you information about something and it
Affects your memory.
affects your memory. It could actually change your memory. And then we talked about implanting memories, like the Lost in the Mall study, where someone could say something happened and then you could totally remember being there and you were never there. Okay?
Did I go to North?
After.
Was what you do that when you did invite somebody to your birthday party?
Yeah, we did invite someone to your birthday party. Oh, remember? Oh, yeah.
You're totally there.
Didn't you do that to your friend or something?
No, I told her to like,
Oh, that she liked someone.
yeah,
Right.
like to like someone else, and
Right,
then
right,
I made
right.
her get dressed for
That's,
school.
that's right. Evil. All right. Reality monitoring. What are you trying to figure out?
Did it really happen?
Did it really happen, or
Was it in your
What's
brain?
that?
was it like, did you dream it, or was it in your head? Right. Okay. So you can make an error, meaning like you thought it really happened, but you thought you locked the door, but you come home only to realize you didn't. Right.
You better say
Source monitoring. What are you trying to figure out?
Who
I
said it?
forgot who.
Who told it to you? Okay, who said whatever it was to you? Did Mrs. Wydra say we were having a test, on this date, or was it my friend? Who said it, right? And then destination memory, you're trying to figure out
Who told you?
who you told it to. That's the most common error. That's why, like, you'll be all excited to tell your friends something, and they're like, you already told me that. Okay?
Well, I'm gonna tell you again.
That's what I'm going to say next time my husband says something. I'm going to tell you again.
I'm gonna tell you again because it's
All right. Reality monitoring. So this is like the official definition. The process of deciding whether memories are based on external or internal sources. Which are the things where it actually happened? External, right? Because it actually happened. Which is where it's in your head?
Internal.
Internal. So you see it's kind of an interestingly worded definition, but you get why. Source monitoring, the process of making inferences about the origins of memories. What's an origin?
Where it came from.
Where it came from. So that you can figure out. Memories are not good.
memories are horrible.
Not accurate.
We don't need this brain anymore. We don't need
All right. Forgetting. So why do we forget? This is all theory-based. Like, you can't really prove any of this. But we think there are adaptive advantages. Maybe it reduces clutter, even though, memory is unlimited supposedly. But maybe it reduces... Oh, we're not on the why yet. We're just on the forgetting. Okay. So... Oh, no, we are. We are on the why.
On both.
Maybe like emotional pain is not good to feel like it just happened all the time, right? That's definitely true. So that helps us. And then we have Ebbinghouse's theory. So Herman Ebbinghaus, remember the house that was falling down the hill?
Yeah.
What did he show? The forgetting curve. Yes, what did he show?
So that we forgot a lot after.
We forget almost everything we learn right away, unless you have phonics, right? Okay, so he memorized what? What do you memorize?
Nonsense.
Nonsense syllables. Good, Josh. Nonsense syllables. Because why did he not use real words?
Because then you'll memorize it easier.
Because then it will
Semantic.
Because he knows what they are and he could have encoded semantically. So with the nonsense syllables, he could not encode semantically, really. I mean, maybe,
Make
but
something
not
up.
really. Okay?
Yeah.
Huh?
You can make something up, like
You could. I know.
like
That's what I was
mnemonic
saying. You
for
could make
everything.
something up, but still, it's
Tell a
harder.
story with words.
I don't think he did that though. I would hope. Either way, I mean, the study was like he did it on himself, So he memorized these nonsense syllables. He tested himself after 20 minutes, 30 minutes, a day, a week, blah blah blah. He found that sharp curve. Most of what he learned, he forgot like within 20 minutes. What do you call the amount he remembered? Retention. Yeah. Is it retention? Right?
Retention interval.
Yeah.
What do you call? Okay, yeah. What do you call the time between when he learned and when he tested?
Retention.
Retention interval. Good.
You want paper?
Retention level? I don't know. Okay, I don't remember. Yeah, it's just retention. You're right. Okay, good. That was the curve. See? And think of the house, Ebbinghaus.
We're so mean.
How come they never replicated a study for
No problem. This is just the original, so he gets credit.
why don't you said the newest one if there is a newest one?
Because the newest one was not original.
The original one's flawed.
Yeah, but anytime there's
And that's what she likes to argue
anytime
with
there's
over the second one
replication,
fact.
the original
can't
gets
change
the
that
credit.
shit.
Yeah, because it's their idea.
Like you mentioned Milgram, you mentioned Milgram, and then you mentioned later one.
Let's hope that
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, Yeah,
So she
it
didn't
mention
mention
it
it.
mentioned.
It could have been
And I
Joanne.
think Milner might have done all of it.
You're right.
All right, you guys.
It was me.
Forgetting.
It was around.
So again, retention is how much you remember.
Around here.
Retention interval is the time between learning and
Testing.
testing. Not forgetting, testing. Okay, recall versus recognition. What's a multiple choice test?
Recognition.
Recognition, because you just have to recognize the answer. What's the free response?
Recall.
Recall. You have to, it has to come out of your brain, right? What's telling a sketch artist what the suspect looked like?
Recall.
Recall, and then what would be recognition?
The line
The
up.
witness thing.
Choosing out of a lineup. Okay, because they're in front of you, so you have to recognize, right? We're almost done, guys. Almost done with this, and then we're gonna do flashcards. Love that. So obviously so generally recognition is easier, but the difficulty can vary based on the answer choices. You guys know that. All right, forgetting, sorry. Why do we forget? So one is we don't encode properly, and either we don't pay attention or we use a shallow level of encoding, right? One is with regard to storage, the information could just kind of decay over time. Time-related decay, it could just kind of wither away. And then we have interference. That's also kind of a storage issue. So if you have information and then you learn new information and you can't remember the old information, new information is getting in the way of remembering old information. N, which one is that? Retroactive interference. Okay? What if old information is getting in the way of remembering new information? Proactive interference. So proactive goes with old information, getting in the way of remembering new information. Retroactive goes with new information is getting in the way of remembering old information. Okay? Huh? Of retention? That's fine. Yeah, you could say retention or you could say remembering, but don't just say old information gets in the way of new information. Some of you guys did that on the test and you lost the point. Okay? So old information gets in the way of remembering new information or retention. Okay? Are we clear on PORM? Okay? All right. So proactive, old, retroactive, new. Clear?
Yeah. It's like you don't get the video banned on YouTube.
No,
What's that thing
good.
called where you can't get
Didn't
paid
say anything.
for YouTube video?
Just when I'm on
It
it.
has like
All
bad
right.
stuff.
We keep it automatic zero.
Okay. When you are learning stuff that's similar versus that's different, which is going to be more interfering? Similar stuff or different stuff?
Similar.
Really similar, yeah, because then it's more confusing. Okay, if it's really different, it's less confusing. So if you study math and then you study history, it's less confusing than if you study English and then you study history that relates to like the English that you just studied. All right, retrieval failures. So the process that you encode with should match the process that you retrieve with. So if you encode phonemically, you should retrieve with a phonemic cue, right? If you encode semantically, you should retrieve with a semantic cue, and same for structural. So the idea of this is called the encoding specificity principle. That's like the theory. If you actually do it, then what are you doing? Transfer appropriate processing. Good. Motivated forgetting is the same thing as repression. Yeah, Freud's, remember, pressing it into the unconscious. You're forgetting things that you don't want to think about, like homework. That's why you guys forget to do your homework.
Yep.
But you will never forget to go to a concert
Nope.
that you have tickets to,
I
right?
don't even pay for it, but if it was free,
Unless
you'd be
like
like,
it wasn't someone you really wanted to see. Okay. So repressed memory theory, a lot of people believe that in fact you could have repressed memories that you don't remember, and abuse is more common than we think, and we repress memories to help cope. It's a defense mechanism, right? Other people believe no, memories can be implanted. It's not true. Remember Elizabeth Loftus's Lost in the Mall? She totally implanted memories. I'm sure there's definitely been cases of repressed memory, and there have definitely been cases of fake, like memory implantation. But I do believe it does exist. But of course, sometimes it's like not true. Eyewitness testimony, is it accurate, super accurate?
No.
No, okay. It can be affected by a lot of things, including arousal levels. If there's a weapon, we look at the weapon. And so if you're trying to, find out who the suspect is, usually the person wasn't looking at the face anyway. It's affected by our schemas, our stereotypes, and sometimes the way questions are asked. Right? The headlight versus a headlight, smashed glass, did the cars smash into each other, or did the cars hit each other? So just language can kind of create new, different memories for us. Memory bio. Long-term potentiation, that's where you form a memory and the pathway stays lit up for a while. Okay? So when you leave here, all the pathways are going to be lit up. You should go home and study more. Neurogenesis.
My hippocampus is crazy.
Neurogenesis is the creation of
New
neurons. When again does that happen?
During
REM. Good. Bio. What's this? Prefrontal cortex. What goes on here?
Higher order thinking.
Higher level thinking. Working memory is kind of higher level thinking, right? Your dog can't play Tetris. Okay. What's this? Cerebral cortex. Memories are stored all over. Go like this. Where are memories stored?
Everywhere.
Cerebral
Cortex.
cortex. Good. Where does consolidation happen? Hippocampus. Hippo on campus studying flashcards, memorizing his flashcards, right? So hippocampus consolidates memory, which means it turns short-term into long-term. Amygdala?
Monster.
Yes, monster. Fear, right? Fear and strong emotions. So when you go through something scary, your amygdala is triggered, and fearful memories are also related to your amygdala. I'm trying to think. I said something earlier about memory and the amygdala, and I forget what it was, but basically it makes sense, because then if you encounter that again, your amygdala is activated and you avoid whatever it is. Cerebellum, remember the bell? Conditioned responses. So it's Sarah the ballerina, balance, right? Plays the piano, fine motor, but then it's also bell is in there. And so the conditioned response, like salivation to the bell, that's also the cerebellum, which is kind of cool. Okay, call them eye blink responses too. All right, amnesia, retro. What is retro? Old. The only time you won't use retro as old is in the interference one. That's the other mnemonic, okay? So retrograde amnesia, you forget all the old stuff that happened before the brain damage occurred, okay? Anterograde, you forget new, meaning you cannot form new memories. Nothing goes into long-term anymore, like HM. Yeah. Okay? So, because consolidation isn't happening, so it's damage to what? The hippocampus. Yeah, good.
Is that for all memories?
Yes. Well, theoretically.
Well, not for muscle memory.
Right. Right. Okay. Systems of memory. Declarative. What was the mnemonic? Declaration of Independence. So facts, right? Okay. Non-declarative is
Action.
non-facts, right? Like, procedural stuff, conditioned stuff, right? So facts can be facts about you or just facts that you could Google, right? So if it's facts that you could Google, what do we call that?
Declarative.
Declarative what?
Memory.
You go to school to learn the meaning of stuff. That's
Semantics.
Semantics. Good.
Oh.
Okay? If it's facts about you,
Episodic.
it's episodic, right? Okay, good. If it's yeah. Okay. Because your life, like episodes of your life, right?
Yeah.
What about non-declarative? What's an example of procedural memory?
Riding a bike.
How to tie your shoe, how to ride a bike. It's like a physical thing, yeah. What about if you recall instructions? What's that? That's declarative, right? But if you have to tie your shoe again, then that's procedural. Good. Which one it requires less effort?
I forgot. Provision.
Non-declarative, procedural is an example. Yeah, less effort. Declarative, you have to concentrate to remember, the facts and stuff.
Condition responses are also non-declarative.
Right. Condition responses are also non-declarative. Yeah.
I don't even
Okay.
know where I'm pointing. I think it's here or like.
Remembering to do things in the future.
Prospective.
Prospective memory, because like prognosis, is future. Okay? Remembering past. Retro, because old. Retrospective. Spec means to see, right? So to see in the future, to be able to remember to do stuff in the future, to remember to do your homework, to remember to wish someone a happy birthday, those are all prospective. Remembering a fact from the past, that's retro. Mnemonic devices, any strategy used to enhance memory. Okay, you've probably learned about like 600 of them this year. Testing effect, why does testing effect help? You're practicing retrieval. Overlearning.
Keep rehearsing even after mastery.
Yeah, you keep rehearsing even after mastery. Minimizing interference is good. Distributing practice little by little. That's why we're doing these Saturdays. We're not doing it all in one weekend, right? Deep processing, use semantic encoding. Make it personally meaningful. Make an outline, which is a conceptual hierarchy. Those are all ways to improve memory. Acrostic. What's an example of an acrostic that we learned?
Great big apple.
Great Big Apple is yeah, it is. You're right. Yeah, Great Big Apples taste delicious and is an acrostic. Yeah. Same as an acronym. Same as an acronym because you're taking the letters you have and you're making a word out of it. With acrostic, you're taking the letters and you're creating new words going across to help you remember. Across, right? But an acronym is like same or another one, yeah. That's an acronym. Yeah. It is a mnemonic. Okay, link method or rhymes are also helpful. Link method, you think of items and link them together in a picture. Okay. Method of loci, what are you doing?
Location.
You're visualizing each thing dropped off in a location, and then you think of that pathway, and it helps you remember them in order because you're walking through that pathway, and then remembering what did you mentally drop off in each location. Is that clear?
Yes.
All right. Okay, cool. Serial position effect. What is that about?
You remember the beginning
You
and the
remember
end.
the beginning and the end of a list, but you
Forget the middle.
forget the middle. And remember to say of a list, right? The beginning and the end of what? Like a movie? Right? Well, actually it would be a movie too. Okay, but whatever. So you remember the beginning and the end of whatever scenario they give you. And then you forget the middle. Why do we remember the beginning? What do we call that effect?
Primacy effect.
Primacy effect.